Hi, here's May, and I took 3 characters I designed and made a little game mock-up with them. I got the idea to make a game with my original characters after also watching a video from Love to Draw Manga. She made some dating simulators with her OCs for Valentine's Day. I was kind of inspired by this, but I didn't use something to make a full-on game which you could interact with, but instead I decided I would use some video editing to simulate a visual novel kind of game experience with just text and characters appearing, talking and so on. And in this video I'll explain how I made this. I will go through my After Effects file, which was the program I used for editing, and I'll also show how I drew the different expressions for the characters, since in visual novel games like these there are often sprites with characters where you have a character standing, maybe even different poses. I had 2 poses for each of my 3 characters, and then the facial expression often is changed. Sometimes the characters can blink and expressions might be sad, surprised and so on. I will also talk about what you can pay attention to when drawing for a project like this, how you can set up the layers in an efficient way. For now I'll start by talking about the expressions, how I drew them. In general, there are 2 different ways you can approach this. You could either use the same blank head base with some hair on it, maybe also the nose, and then draw the eyes and the mouth completely separately depending on the expression, meaning you have one base layer and then one layer where you have the eyes and the mouth so that it fits. For this you would then draw one layer with an angry expression, maybe one with a sad expression and so on. But there's also another approach, which was the one I took, and this was to separate the facial features and draw different eyebrows, eyes, as well as mouths. This way you can then combine these different parts and create own expressions. I will already tell you beforehand that the first approach is probably better if you have just a few expressions and really want to focus on conveying the emotions, since when you focus on just drawing an angry expression you can really make sure that the eyes and the mouth and so on work together. While you use the second approach, which was what I did, you have a lot more combinations, and some of them will look a bit weird and some of them might look very cool, but it's not as guaranteed as when you already draw in a combined way. About the characters' faces, what I also forgot to talk about were the eyebrows, and especially for the moon character now, when I look back at it, I definitely wanted the moon character to have a face that looks more gentle than the sun's face. I probably would have made his eyebrows thinner and more rounded and not as edgy as they turned out, since that also would have been more different from the other characters. You can see that the sun character has more of this arched and edgy eyebrow. The star character has wider eyebrows. I also could have done them smaller to give him more of a cute look. I was kind of inspired by characters like Kokumi from Genshin Impact. And then for the moon character, overall eyebrow shape looks pretty similar to the sun character to me. So if I could now change it, I would make his eyebrows be more rounded and thinner. But that's just something I wanted to add here. And at this point, let's also talk about the eye and hair colors for all of them. For the sun character, I wanted to have a overall warm feeling. So he has brown hair and golden eyes. Then the moon character kind of as contrast, white hair and purple eyes. I was at first thinking to maybe make them blue, but I was really inspired by Sogo from Idolish 7 for him, so I decided to go with purple. And then we have the star character. I went for blonde for his hair, fitting to how the stars are often portrayed more yellowish, but I also played around with maybe pink hair. Overall, when designing anime style characters like these, I find it can be very helpful to first determine if the characters should in general have only realistic hair colors or also not realistic ones. And deciding on this can also help with determining eye colors. Often eye colors tend to be different from realistic eye colors. To me, they should always fit to the hair color in some way. I also find that, especially when looking at idol anime colors of characters, hair and eyes often match their personality or role in the group. So a blue character might be more of a cold or calm one, while the red character is often more outgoing and energetic. For the star character, here I went with pink eyes since I thought it would fit nicely to gold and purple. I was also thinking about turquoise, blue, or having one blue eye, but in the end I went with pink. But now I'll talk about how you can separate your layers to draw different expressions with the same face shape. What I did was, for the eyes, I had a normal version where they were open and looking in one direction, and then I had another one where they were looking in another direction, and then I also had a closed eyes variation, and I think just having closed eyes in there if you want to animate a blink is very useful. Then I had different mouth versions in one folder, and I also, as well as different eyebrow versions in one folder. And for this, if your character has hair that should be above the eyebrows, then it makes sense to have the hair layer be above this. For me, the eyebrows were on top of the hair. It just makes sense to be aware of the layer order here, what is on top of what and so on. And I will now show this in After Effects. Okay, here we are in After Effects. This are my compositions, is what it's called, with all the combinations. You can see what I mean with when you have everything separate. You get lots of different combinations, and some of them might look good and some of them might look weird. And now I'll also show you how I put all of the different files in here. Here you can see in my Explorer all the different files and how I exported them. This is basically the base I used for all the characters, would be just the eyes. And here we have the different mouths, and then we have the different eyebrows. And I imported all of these here. So in this, you can see, for example, these are all the mouths. I would have all the mouths combined with one eyebrow version, and then combine this in here with the different eye versions. This is also what I did with the other characters. And for example, if I were to set this up new right now, I will first make a new white background layer. I would drag in the base layers. And since for this one, I don't really need the one without the eyes, so I will delete it and I will just use the different eye versions. And then you can see I have the different mouths, and I would just drag them on top. Let's say for this one we would just want the regular mouth, and so on. I could switch it up, of course, then later with the other mouth versions. Then I would place the eyebrows on top and so on. This was what I did for all the compositions with the characters in them. When I drew the eyebrows and the mouths and so on, I of course, for some of them, had in mind, I want some version with an open mouth, maybe a surprised look, eyebrows go upwards and so on, or an angry eyebrows and also angry mouth, or confused and sad and happy and so on. And for these one, I actually also made some adjustments to the eyes, but this didn't work that well. This is what I meant with paying attention to that the eyes and the mouth convey the same emotions, because if you just draw different eyes like this, the eyes can look kind of expressionless. Normally when you want to draw a really convincing expression, it makes sense to also have the eyes, maybe for a smile, be a bit more closed, and for a surprised expression to be more open. This is why using the other approach can also work in your favor if you really want to focus on the different expressions, and I plan on doing something like that for a future project probably. But now let's move on to the actual game setup in After Effects. So this is the whole composition with just the game, and you see there are a lot of layers in here, and all the materials I used, I separated them into folders. For one we have the characters, which included standing illustration files, and then also the face PNGs I just told you about when talking about the expressions. Then we have in material, I have some backgrounds, and I drew this background myself, but then I also used one from a site called Sosino, where you can find a lot of cool backgrounds for free. And then I also had different PNGs as well as a little GIF video for the beginning, and I animated these PNGs. So here in the beginning you have the start and exit button, and it gets bigger when this cursor hovers over it and I animated the cursor and so on. And we have a fade to white and the whole UI appearing, the menu, and this was just so it would look like in a game. And here we have the different texts. For one we have the title where I used the font called Sunny Spells. This would be for the names of the characters who's talking right now. The regular text, I animated this so the timing would work. So after a sentence, for example, there's a short pause and so on, just so it's nicer to read. That's basically what I have in here is just background and UI elements, the text, and then we have the character. And here we have the character, and you see I have this composition with him just the head and talking. And in this composition I have also the text, so I could only focus on having the character look like they talk. For some reason I really wanted to try this. And here we also have the character blinking. It just makes the character feel more alive, and it's easy to do, just having a layer with closed eyes and making it appear and not to appear. That's it how I set up the characters, and I combined the body and the head here. This is the body and this is the head. And then we have also the second character appearing. Yeah, and here I also made a switch from the different poses, which is nice to do. But that's basically the whole setup for this. And the approach with having the different layers for the expressions on top of each other, actually also similar to how I animate my persona in the beginning of my YouTube videos. And now I show the finished result of how the overall game mockup turned out. I hope this video was enjoyable to watch and you could get inspired or learn from it. What do you think about the 3 characters? And if you would be interested in seeing more mockups like this, maybe focusing on one of the characters to kind of show their personality a bit, you can leave a comment. I enjoyed making this kind of game a lot, and I actually also plan to maybe make something similar with some Genshin Impact character in the future. I'm not sure about it, but this was very cool to try out. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. Bye!